All right, it's another week and another Wizards PR punt. Um, if you've been on Reddit or any social media, basically everyone's talking about Proxygate or whatever you want to call this proxy issue with Wizards. And I thought I would first inform you a little bit about what's going on, and second, share my opinion. So basically what happened is there, from what I've gathered, is there was some sort of private communication between Wizards and a store owner, basically indicating that they could not host uh, like vintage or legacy events and allow proxies. Now, this is kind of a phenomenon that's been growing in popularity because lots of us want to play legacy and vintage, but only this much of us can actually afford it. With decks costing $5, $10, $15,000, most of us will never even hold a legacy deck in our hands. And if I didn't know people like the Zemet, I probably would never see these cards either, or touch them, or play a deck with them in it. And so this communication goes public, and then people start asking Wizards for more clarification. And I think anytime you ask a corporation for clarification on their official policies, that's exactly what they're going to parrot back to you, is their official policy, which people will take literally. And it's just like with Wizards and how they like to enforce the letter of the law and not necessarily the spirit of the law. And we saw this with the judge bannings, and I believe I used that same description. Basically, a lot of stores will run proxy tournaments where either your entire deck can be proxies, or they'll say 20 or 10 proxies. So basically, you can play in a legacy event if you don't own Power 9 or, $1,000 cards, and you can have a lot of fun. It's a great way to play Magic. And while I don't play in any of these like sanctioned events, the vintage and legacy players that I know are very happy that these events are running. By and large, their opinion is simply that they're very happy to be able to play their expensive decks. Nobody with a complete non-proxy deck really cares if the person across from them has a 100% real deck or is using 10 proxies, because at the end of the day, you build a legacy or vintage deck, or just like any deck, to play the game. So when this came out, people were asking Wizards for some clarification. And I don't blame Trick. Probably a nice guy, and I know he took a bit of heat with the bannings, but here's what he said. Hey folks, I checked into this, and here's what I can tell you. So I won't read the whole thing, but basically he says proxy cards are substitute cards. He defines what a proxy is, and then goes on to say that Wizards views proxies as counterfeits, and therefore they don't allow them. And I get that. It makes total sense. I'm sure it's exactly how they define it. Their lawyers define it. But just like most things, Magic players tend to overreact, and you have even guys like Brian Kibler chiming in saying this answer is outright absurd, especially in the light of official Wizards of the Coast website promoting video content using proxies. There's also an article from a few years back where Wizards tells you to go play in these proxy events, and now they're coming out and contradicting that. Now, the article itself, and I'll put a link in the description below, the title of the article isn't "Go play your proxy events at your local game stores." It was like a sentence at the end of the article, and it wasn't like an official Wizards PR response. And I'm not sure how many people looked at that article before it actually went out. This ban really has always been in place, and it doesn't really affect playtesting or casual, if you want to proxy stuff at home. Obviously they have no domain over what you do in your own home, but it's especially frustrating to me in a world where Standard is now pricing new players out of the game, that they're going to take away these events at local game stores that lets legacy players actually, or vintage or legacy players, play the decks they've spent tens of thousands of dollars on. And I thought Cardboard Crack basically nailed it with their cartoon today, of basically showing, we've got this new policy, and then you've got one dude with a full deck, and he comes into the event and he doesn't have anyone to play with. The part that I'm not in love with is basically they say counterfeit cards are prohibited in sanctioned events. Duh. Sounds like people are most people are on board with that. And based on the Wizards Code of Conduct, we have started to ask stores not to organize unsanctioned events with counterfeit cards. Notice he doesn't say proxies, he says counterfeit cards. This is a calculated PR response. They want to push the narrative that these are counterfeit. And they're not. Somebody who's playing in a 10 or 20 proxy card event is, one, they're not taking any business away from Wizards anyway, so I don't know why Wizards chose to lay their heavy hand on such a small thing. And two, they're not counterfeits. They're a card that somebody writes Mox on the back. I mean, let's be real here. And again, Wizards, I think, has every right to enforce this, but they went about it in completely the wrong way again. Let me offer a different solution. Instead of coming out and banning these events, by the way, Helene Bergeron, or Helen, or I'm sure it's Helene, she actually offered some further clarification in a tweet saying, this is entirely about stores running tournaments for profit, not about playtesting. I don't know about you, but I can't see any local game stores getting rich off running vintage proxy events. It's an event that, the event wouldn't even exist if not for the proxies allowing people to play. And who's to say that people want to get in to vintage, but they can't afford to buy the entire deck right away, so they proxy the most expensive cards, and then they eventually do buy them. I think there's a lot of benefit to allowing people to proxy, and it's not an IP thing. Like they're trying to say, oh, we're protecting our IP, we're protecting our IP. These cards came out 20 years ago, okay? And Wizards, due to their non-reprint list policy, they're not offering us an option to get a Black Lotus that's reasonable. So if we want to play Legacy, we have to buy from game stores or people online that we don't know. And so in order to play Legacy, they're forcing us to buy from other people anyway. Let me offer an alternative. What if, instead of using the heavy hand, it's like their legal department, their only tool is the bad hammer, and so they see every problem like a nail. What if Wizards would put out, for example, sanctioned proxies that allow you to use these Wizards-only proxies, and you have to, and maybe you buy a set or they sell them for $5 a piece. I don't know. I don't think it hurts the collector market, obviously, because people are always going to still want the real thing. They're not going to want a gold bordered card with Black Lotus written on it, and they can make them look ugly. Okay, they can make them look totally undesirable, and print them into oblivion, put them in packs like tokens. Okay, I don't care how they do it, but wouldn't that be a way for Wizards to monetize the vintage market? Put something out. What if they charge $50 for a set of these certified proxies? Don't you think people would buy something like that? I don't think it hurts the secondary market. I think, in fact, people buying these proxies and using them in the sanctioned events, or unsanctioned events, would eventually want to actually buy the real card, of course. Of course I want to own a Mox. I don't have $1,000 right now, but I still want to play in vintage. And we have Wizards of the Coast official YouTube channel pumping out vintage Super League videos all the time. We've got them running a Patreon account to support vintage Super League. which I think they should do. But the only option right now to play Vintage, according to Wizards, is to buy the cards on MTGO. I mean, I'm not sure where they're going with that. And of course, you have store owners chiming in, basically saying, look, guys, and this is kind of how I totally agree with their opinion. There's nothing stopping them from saying, hey, you guys can come in and play test, but I'm just going to charge a $5 table fee. I mean, there's any number of loopholes that these store owners could do, but I just don't understand why Wizards is putting their nose in now. You know, a week before the new set drops, when everyone's finally starting to forget about the judge bannings, now we get this. And I am keenly aware that, look, Wizards is, you know, the mothership, and anytime they do anything that could be remotely considered negative to the community, it's a huge deal. Way bigger of a deal than it needs to be, right? And the millions of Magic players, there's less than 1% of them that probably play in vintage proxy tournaments. But anytime someone tells you can't do something, that's when, of course, you don't react well to that. And I think Trick is just trying to put it out there, but I'm going to put links to his response. His response is really angering, just like the judge one. But I think he's just the one that has to put it out there. I hope he's not the one writing this stuff, because it's really condescending at times. And but he's the one, it's his job, he's the one that has to deal with it. So I'm not going to bag on him, but what I do have a problem with is how they went about it. And again, this all started, from what I can understand, is some personal communication getting public, and then Wizards basically having to put out some sort of statement to answer all the questions. We weren't happy with what they had to say. They have every right to say it, but it's my opinion that they could, instead of looking at every opportunity to ban or say no, they need someone on their staff, I don't know, maybe a bearded guy from Wisconsin, who can look at things like this and turn it into an opportunity. Instead of having a negative reaction, you could say, hey, for $8.99, you can go on our website and download an official sheet and print your own proxies. Maybe that gets out of hand, but you could still not allow them at sanctioned events, and you could still not allow them wherever you want, so you can keep their value nil, but still allow us to play vintage with paper and allow the people who spent tens of thousands of dollars on vintage cards to play the game they love. Just look at the Vice documentary. These are guys that play vintage Magic. They love it. I find it hard to believe that they would say no to a new player just because they had 5 or 6 proxies in their deck. It's the only way to start vintage, and it's easy to say that Wizards just wants us to buy more packs so we can buy more standard decks that rotate out, but they can have it both ways. I mean, I think, please, you know, Wizards, look at this as an opportunity and not a problem, and I think you'll keep people a little happier. So that's what's up with Proxygate. I'd love to hear what you think about it in the description below, and we'll talk to you again real soon. What's up, and thanks for watching this video. I produce all different kinds of content, so if you haven't yet, click on my face to subscribe. If you want to watch more videos, I've got some sweet playlists, including this one, where I open up every fat pack ever created. I've also got this one over here, where I open just about anything vintage and old and expensive for your enjoyment. And all this is made possible by the awesome backers at our Patreon, which is linked in the description of every video. Hop on over there, check it out, see if it's something you might want to consider. If not, sit back, enjoy, and I'll still love you.